Louise. Hi everybody, it's nice to see all your faces on a screen. Lots of faces I know, it's very exciting. So welcome here. We're sitting here at Rickerton Baptist Church in Christchurch and want to welcome you to our place and welcome our friend Tiaki, who came to the Intergenerate conference and was very, very well received with what he had to say. And so we thought, let's get him to do it again. So we're sitting here with a few of us in this big space, but we're really pleased to be with you. So I want to first of all apologise for any technology glitches. Let's just run with it. We all are very, very gracious and kind to each other with technology, aren't we? So I'm going to do all the screen sharing and everything that I can try and make sure I do it properly for you. And I want to apologise right up front if I stuff anything up. But as we're doing that, please feel free as we're going along to write anything into the chat. Louise will be keeping a look at that and put anything into the chat that you'd like to ask at the end. There will be a few minutes at the end to break into 3 or 4s and have a bit of a discussion together about what Tiaki has said. And but then we'll also have a bit of time for question and answer. Just probably more comment it will be, I think, rather than questions, but we'll see whatever you want to talk about, we can talk about for 5 minutes or so at the end. What I'm really thinking though is that this webinar will just start to make the conversation happen, really. I'm not expecting that you're going to go away and think and know everything about Māori tikanga and what you're going to do about that in your context, but that this is just actually really just the beginning of a conversation. So especially with those of us that are in New Zealand, I'd really want to keep this conversation going. So really looking forward to connecting with you afterwards. Okay, so that's about all for me. I'm going to share my screen and then share Tiaki with you. So please bear with for one moment.
We welcome you with the beautiful sound of a Māori flute called the putorino, a traditional Māori flute that was used to aid in grieving and also to relieve physical pain. We then welcomed you with the eerie sound of the purere hua. Sounds like a moth, doesn't it? This sound connects me to my creator and to the creation that he breathed life into. And finally, we welcome you with the eerie sound or the calming sound of the koauau. Now, this is another flute that was traditionally played by Māori men to woo their damsel woo their wahine, made famous by the pūrākau, or the story from my hometown, Rotorua. Tūtanakai was on Mokoi Island, which is in the middle of Lake Rotorua, and he started playing the kuaua. His lover, Hini Moa, heard the sound, and anyway, she swam to him to join him. So I think, guys, if you want some romance in your relationship, right, you need to start playing this. In fact, I might start learning it myself. Anyway, kia ora koutou katoa, ko Tiaki Leathers toku ingoa. Nā tiranga werehi I taku hapu, o te arawa te waka. Kia karakia tātou. Let us pray. But before we do that, let's have a look at that word karakia. Karakia is made up of 3 words. Ka, well, it means future tense, but actually in this context, it means a divine spark. Ra means sun, but in this context, it means the heavens. And kia is a command. Kia kaha, be strong. So a karakia is to bring about a divine spark in the heavens. And so my question to you, what is your spark with your Creator? What holds your relationship? Kia karakia tātou. E pāta mātua, Father God. Ia nei au tamariki. Here are your children. He honore atu mātou kia koe. We honor you. Aroha mai, aroha atu. We receive your aroha and we give it out. I tēnei rā, āmene. This day, amen. Kia ora koutou katoa. Ngā tangata tapu I haere mai nei ki tēnei wahi. Manaki kia koutou. Aroha kia koutou. Mana kia koutou. Kia ora e te whānau. And so in that brief mihi, I welcomed you with the first 2 words, which are kia ora. Now, what does kia ora mean? Well, kia ora means hello. But actually, there's something a little bit deeper about that. Kia means to bring about. It is a command, as we learnt before in the karakia. And ora means life, wealth, health, salvation, blessing. So when I said to you, kia ora koutou, I commanded life over you. I commanded a blessing over you. So last week was Te Reo Te Wiki, was honouring the Māori language. So I want a bit of a challenge to let's see if we can introduce a few more kia oras in our place. The reality is, you're saying kia ora to someone, they won't know what your heart context is. And so when I've said to you, kia ora koutou, I'm actually bestowing a blessing on you. And welcome to this place. And I spoke manaki over you. I spoke aroha over you. I spoke mana over you. And I welcomed you as whānau. And so after we do our short mihi, of course for us as Māori, we love to do a waiata. And just happens to be, I've got my guitar over there. So we're going to sing a waiata. Quite a common waiata, he hongare, he kororia. Honour and glory ki te atua, honour and glory to God. Maunga rongo ki te whenua, great peace to the land. Whakaaro pai ki ngā tangata katoa, thoughts from above to us all here. Te atua, te peringa, tōku oranga. God is our refuge, Piringa is our stronghold. Tōku oranga, my strength, my well-being, my life comes from him. So, he honore kororia, and let's see if you can join in. Just got my assistant Graham here. E honore e karoria mo ngā rongo ki te whenua whakaro pai whakaro pai e i ngā tangata katoa ake 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 mene te atua te pereinga tōku oranga tōku oranga. Kapai, and big shout out to my assistant Graham, thank you. Was that you harmonising? Was it you harmonising, was it Graham? And so after we do a waiata, we do a hongi. And traditionally that's done on the marae after the manuhiri have come and onto the marae, and the tangata whenua, they hongi with them and they become one. Of course, as Māori, we love pressing noses, but the reality is in COVID, not so much now. But I have someone here who is part of my little bubble. So let's look at the hongi. What's the Māori word for nose? It's called ihu. Nose to nose, ihu to ihu. What's the Māori word for Jesus? Ihu. Ihu to ihu, Jesus to Jesus. And so I don't have a theology for this, but I have hongied hundreds of people. And for me, it is, Lord, let there be some sort of transference of life. May Jesus come through me, and may there be a touch of him. So I've got my little bubble here, and I'm actually going to go to Marie. She's representing of all you fellas watching. And this represents, you see, I'm going to her to initiate the hongi. Normally it's the other way around. But this is symbolic of life has stepped out of heaven to bring his kids home. And so as I'm symbolically coming to Marie, it is life coming to us. It is the Father bringing his kids home. What we have done is just through some short but simple rituals, we have brought you into this place, and our hearts have been joined just for a short time through the instruments, through the karakia, through the mihi, and the making our words come alive. through the waiata, and through the hongi. And so now for this short time, we are one. I want to share with you today 4 kaupapa. Let's look at this word kaupapa. It's made up of 2 words. The first word is ko, and it means to bathe or to swim. Papa comes from papa tuanuku. And so kaupapa means to bathe in life that comes from the whenua. Kaupapa means those principles that are birthed from the land. And so I'm going to talk to you today about 4 kaupapa and about how I applied those to the death of my father last May in Rotorua during COVID. So he passed away suddenly last May during COVID at Rotorua. And we got the call from my sister, says, oh, look, Dad's just passed away suddenly. We need you home. The marae was closed. So as a whānau, we had to be flexible. We had to be really flexible. And so it was, bro, you and the family, you need to come home. I was the one that was going to coordinate the poroaki, and I was the one that was going to take the service. So I used these 4 kaupapa as a guide, as a blueprint. And for me, it kind of works like, once I introduce these and share what these kaupapa are, it's kind of like, for me, practically, how do I live that is what's missing. Remember when I actually did a mihi to you and I said, kia ora koutou, I haere mai nei ki tēnei wahi, manaaki ki a koutou, aroha ki a koutou, mana ki a koutou, kia ora te whānau. I was actually declaring these kaupapa over you. Manaakitanga, arohatanga, mana, and kia ora te whānau in a sense of whanaungatanga, bringing you in amongst us. So let's have a look at these 4 kaupapa. So manaakitanga is to care for a person or group's mana. It is the well-being of every person and includes the respect we give to our elders. The elders are responsible for the manaakitanga or care of the entire group, connected primarily on a marae situation. The manaakitanga they give is based on their knowledge, life experience, and wisdom. So at the heart of manaakitanga is that every person is bestowed care. And it is totally inclusive. Now let's look at arohatanga. So arohatanga is the application of manaakitanga, but at a deeper level. So if we look at the word aroha, quite a common Māori word that we use quite often, but let's break it down. Aro means the thought, life principle, paying attention, to focus on, or to front, or to face, or to front. It is, in a sense, the essence of the person that is presenting to you. Ha is the life force, the breath, or the energy. So combining those 2 words together, aroha, it is to be in the sacred breath of the Creator. It is to be one with the Creator. And practically living that out, we express that sacredness to every person who is a tamariki, who is a mokopuna, who belongs to Atua. And maybe some people just don't quite know that. So aro, in a sense, is in its widest and in its deepest sense, the application of manaakitanga to every person in your group. Now let's look at mana. Oh, he tino hohonu o tēnei kaupapa o te mana. Mana is really, and we've just got some words here to try and describe it: power, authority, ownership, status, influence, dignity, and respect. Quite a powerful word in Māoridom. And let's look at whanaungatanga, is about kinship. In Māori terms, it is those people who belong to a particular marae. They whakapapa to that marae through their tribe. But whanaungatanga in a sense is that that person has a right to speak and the obligation to look after their marae and to uphold its mana. And whanaungatanga is especially important in how we apply aroha manaakitanga to our guests, to our visitors. And it is applied especially when we say to our visitors, kia ora e te whānau. Welcome to our family. So whanaungatanga is that particular strength or gift of connections, of linking with people. So that's our 4 kaupapa. How did I apply that to the tangihana of my dad? Well, once I got the call from my sister, it was like, sis, we need to include all the whānau. We need to start delegating roles within the whānau. All right, bearing in mind too that it was actually COVID. So normally the tribe would take over the responsibility on the marae. Marae was shut. So we made a decision to put Dad in my brother's garage. We put him in the back, laid out some mattresses there, and we put him in his happy place. He used to put his, him and Vicky used to take their karaoke there, and they'd have some beautiful times with family. That was his happy place. And so the decision was made to put Dad there. And then from there, Tani on the ground up in Rotorua, worked through some of the admin connections, of course, linking him with our marae and all the other things that need to go with that. But I think at the heart of it was, sis, every person in the whānau needs to be included in this. From the mokopuna, from the grandchildren. And traditionally is the mokopuna that actually dug the hole for the tūpapaku in the urupa. Right from our aunties and uncles who in a sense held the knowledge of whakapapa and to adorn and look after the tūpapaku. Right to men with the orators and the te reo. And so the whole idea was to try and apply these kaupapa in a family situation that was far from perfect. But we actually did our best. Anyway, we jumped on the plane and shot off up there, and we traveled there on the Wednesday. Dad was going to get buried on the Thursday. And so the first responsibility was we had a hui, and we actually came up with roles for every person that was there. Every person was included in that. And of course, when there's a tangihana, generally the whole whānau comes together. Now, I was all prepared for Puroporoaki, which was coming up that night. But what I didn't know is that my son and a couple of the other mokos had been taken away by my kazi, and they started digging a hole for my dad in the Paul whānau side. It's a bit of a funny story. So they started digging the hole on the Paul side of the whānau, which is my kuia side, my dad's mother's side of the family. Well, lo and behold, our kaumātua found out about it, shot off down there, and told them off and says, hey, you fellas, tikanga is, Ngāti Rangawiri tanga, you don't dig the hole the night before. Why? Because historically, he takahi te mana o te tūpapaku. So they got told off and they had to fill the hole up again. Anyway, I found out about it and I rung them up and I tonued on behalf of Dad. I spoke in Te Ao Māori. And I said, ka moinga I toku papa, I te tahi I tona papa. I te urupa or leathers. So I spoke to him in Te Reo, and I declared that he would actually, through whakapapa, that he will actually be laid with his whānau, with his leathers family. So in a sense, we had that conflict there, which was part of what we do in Māoridom. That's part of mana. Anyway, I said to my son and some of the other mokos, I said, hey, you fellas have to get your shovels ready for tomorrow morning. This is where you're going to dig it and make sure the dimensions are correct as well. So after that, we had the Puroporoaki, which was on the Wednesday night. Traditionally, that's where the elders of our marae, they actually create the rituals for the deceased to move comfortably through his marae, through to our tribal urupa. So on the Purupuruaki, we had all the aunties and uncles and family there, and it's a time where you can actually speak to the tūpapako, or you can speak to the family. It is a time, in a sense, where we begin to express words. It is a time where we begin to initiate grief. And I started the process. I wanted to honor Dad because Dad actually was once a warrior, and he actually encountered God. God changed his heart, and he became a kind and gentle man. So I shared that testimony. I said, we came, you know, this was our life. We came from a once warriors. And of course, I left and joined the army. I won't go too much about it, but summarize it. I left and joined the army in the sense to kind of move away from a family that was kind of, that was struggling a bit. I got a phone call in 1983. I'd just come from the bar, had a couple of beers, and one of the guys says, hey, it's a phone call for you. It's your mum. Okay, then, Mum, what's up? Your dad's become religious. Okay, put him on. The first thing he said, son, you need to go find Jesus. And I said, yeah, good one, Dad. Put your mum on. Anyway, spoke to mum. Yeah, he's a bit nuts. He's gone crazy. Couple of years down the track, went to Singapore, rugby accident. Make sure you get your head out of the way in a tackle. Medically downgraded, sent to Papakura military camp. I was on a bit of a downer, quite depressed, drinking heavily. Dad came along, and this time I was ready to listen. He says, son, remember when you mocked me 2 years ago? I says, yeah, Dad. He says, nothing's changed. You need to go and find Jesus. Went to the Māori Evangelical Fellowship Church that Sunday, and I caught up with Auntie Bella. She was the one that led Dad to the Lord. She took me up the front, and I gave my life to the Lord. And so I shared that story about my dad in front of my whānau, and also shared his favorite verse, John 3:16. Koia no te aroa o te atua ki te ao. I homa ia ki tana tama kotahi, ki a kahari a e ngaro e te tangata i whakapono ki a ia, engari, kia whiwhi a e te oro tonu. I shared, that was his favorite verse. And I gave mana to Dad. And from after that, there was other whānau members that actually shared, and, you know, and that's what we do in a Purupuruaki. So after that, it was obviously the final, come to the final day, and the hole had been dug in the right place. That was cool, and the hearse came, and there was karakia, and there was waiata, and we took them up to the marae. But because the marae was shut, we had our elders and our kuia did a mihi and a karakia to him under the waharua. So under the waharua is the gateway. Waha is mouth, roa is long, so that's the spiritual entranceway to the marae. So we placed them under there, and the elders, in a sense, blessed them, and we send them up to Puhurua. And from there, I took the service. I kind of wasn't quite sure what that looks like. I did a bit of a Google. Anyway, over his graveside, I did whakapapa, Te Ao Māori, to honour Ngāti Rangawihuitanga and Te Arawatanga. I also did a haka from Ephesians 6, in a sense, to honour Dad. And from there, the whānau, we laid our Dad to rest. Then from there, ka hoki ki te kāinga, we had a hakari, a big feast, and there was more whanaungatanga from there, catching up with people and say, well, where to from here within the whānau? There's obviously a lot of deficits within our family regarding things Māori, karakia, Te Ao Māori, and waiata, and for those that are listening, Māori, you'll be quite familiar with that. That was stuff that we've actually parked as something to look forward to in the future for our whānau. So that was really a summarized version. There's a lot more to it, of course. So anyone who's obviously been part of Tangihana, there's a lot to it. But as a whānau, we worked really, really hard to do that. And I used those 4 kaupapa as a guideline. It's like, what's missing? What is missing in arohatanga? What is missing in mana? Who haven't we given mana to? Who's the connections that are missing? Whanaungatanga. How do we care for those people here? And so it's what's missing in these kaupapa. And so I just want to share with you just bullet points, some of the tasks that we did to fulfill these kaupapa. Manakitanga, great care was taken of Dad. There was someone with him the whole time. Visitors' needs attended to without being overbearing. So being COVID, but we had some manuhiri that came in, and we had people assigned to them to look after their needs. And we personally actually, we made it incredibly important to make contact with them and to form connections. What are your connections with Dad? Whānau needs checked in with regularly. It's important for our own whānau in a time of grief that we check in with every person. How are they going? How are the roles? How are you going with your roles and your tasks? Ka pai, arohatanga. There's a few bullet points there. Honesty and mutuality extended. Authenticity expressed. That is something that is developing. What does that mean? What does it mean to be Māori? What does it mean to be a Christian Māori? What does that look like? What does grief look like? Learning through shared experiences, creating arohatanga and empathy. Arohatanga is a deeper level. Care within the whānau as a way of life. Giving as a way of life. Well, the reality is our whānau doesn't have a lot of money. The reality is at a tangihana, the expectation is you give. And I think giving is something I think that we need to teach. Out of arohatanga, out of a sense of gratefulness, we give. Listening and learning, nil judgment. We don't judge. There's no experts, just listeners and learning. And trust is built out of that. Conflict worked through or put on hold to sort out later. Every whānau has its little closet stuff, doesn't it? We park that for the good of the occasion, and we don't neglect it, but we deal with that later on. Shared experiences at a deeper level, and I think that's arohatanga in the sense of working through emotional issues. Arohatanga ka pai, mana, the mana of Dad, in the sense of his story being told. He was cared for during the whole tangi. Stories about him were shared, especially his conversion to Christianity. The mana of the whānau held, nobody excluded, roles carefully inclusive, really important. Every person honoured. The mana of the hapu, Ngāti Ranga Werehi, and the iwi of Te Aroa upheld. We did our best without in difficult times to uphold the tikanga of our tribe. The mana of God, in the sense of Jesus exalted and the Father was honoured. The mana of Te Ao Māori upheld with all its limitations and weaknesses of the whānau. So we did our best in regards to things Māori, and we're learning as we go along. And whanaungatanga, whānau linkages strengthen, identity as Māori reinforced through waiata karakia whakapapa, haka, marae, urupai, our tribal cemetery, and pūrākau. The cemetery was really important because we had people that hadn't been there for such a long time. And it's like, there's your ancestors. So for me, for example, my name's Tiaki. I changed my name from my Pākehā name to my Māori name when I learnt the reo and reconnected with my marae. And I went up there and I saw my ancestor there, and his name was Tiaki Leathers. So kia mau I te ingoa o Tiaki. Whakamana te ingoa I te whakapapa. I pulled that name back and I made it come alive. Strength-based focus always. Deficits managed at the tangi within the whānau strength. So, every group has its weaknesses. Let's focus on our sweet spots. Let's focus on what we're good at. The stuff that we're not so good at, okay, we can get somebody in the team who can actually manage that. It's not a big deal. We're not going to put people in a situation where they just actually freak out big time. Conflicts quickly sorted out, commitment to resolve later on. Deficits including Te Ao Māori, tikanga Māori, waiata karakia to be planned as whānau order. Part of the planning to work with some of those things Māori, which are really important to us. Knowledge out of shared relationship and intimate relationship. How do you build relationship? How do you build intimacy within a group? What does that look like? No telling what to do, but giving out a relationship. Children included and looked after, really important. Tensions between roles managed. The marae and the whānau, there were issues there in regards to obviously where dad's going to be buried and upholding tikanga on the urupa. Who cleans the toilets, for example, at home. Regular mini hui to check in, so just checking in with people. How are you going? What's going on for you? Relationships becoming whānau, strong intimacy built, tōkana relationships. So those who are a bit more experienced, generally elder people, they are the ones that mentor or coach or tautoko those who are a bit more experienced. So that was just a bullet point. Thank you for your time. And my question to you is this. Could you adopt any of these kaupapa in your context? What would that look like? Nō reira, tēnā te miatu kia koutou katoa, I hoatu I ki te rākau kia Rachel. Nō reira, kia ora.
Thank you, Tiaki. We're just going to break into rooms now of 3 or 4. Louise is going to do that for us. And have a little chat about what Tiaki has just asked us. How could you adopt some of those Māori kaupapa into your context, and what would that look like? Going to spend about 5 to 7 minutes in that breakout room, depends how long Louise leaves us in there for. Have a little chat about that. There was a lot in there, and then we will come back for a little bit of quick Q&A with Tiaki as well. So we'll see you in 5 minutes. Thanks. Well, first of all, thank Tiaki again for his wealth of knowledge, but also wealth of experience, and just also his servant heart to want to share with us. And I think this is just the beginning of a conversation, really. One of the things that stood out for me was a lot of it was to do with connections, is the word that I kept hearing, and relationship and intimacy, and also the bit about everyone has a part to play. I like that part as well.
I think that the creator of the universe has brought such diversity, but there are God-shaped ways within every culture, and we need to find those and teach them to one another, that we might honor and glorify God together, whatever our cultural heritage is, that we find the Jesus way in that, because he's poured it into each and every culture. Thank you so much, Tiaki. Thank you, Rachel. Blessings on you all. See you again soon.
Thank you very much.
Kia ora koutou.
Thanks.